in our eyes. So what is this telling us that it's not telling us? We have to watch for these things. What is this telling us that it's not telling us? It's telling us that before they got to heaven, we know that they came out of great tribulation, right? Because we were told that by the elder when he was talking to John. These are they who have come out of great tribulation and have washed their robe white in the blood of the Lamb. And they will no longer, what does that mean? If I look at LJ here and I say, you will no longer play the guitar, what does that mean?
It means he plays the guitar.
It means that he currently plays the guitar, right?
You will not.
Right. And it means that he most likely had a history of playing the guitar, for at least a little bit. For me to say no longer suggests that there was a longer before that, because it's no longer, right? They shall hunger no more. So what does that mean happened prior to this?
They got hungry.
They were hungry. Neither will they thirst anymore. What happened before this? They were thirsty, right? Neither will the sun light on them. What happened before this? They didn't have shelter. Nor any heat. What does that mean? They were in the heat, right? So what we're seeing here is the people who come out of the tribulation period aren't going to have food, aren't going to have water, are going to be out in the open, out without shelter, and are going to be out in the sun, in the elements, and have to deal with things. Because this says that the people, this great multitude that nobody could count, so it's not just like people in Oklahoma are going to experience this, although maybe there are enough people in Oklahoma to create a great multitude. I suppose it's possible. But the sense that I get is, when we go back and we look, it says, after this, verse 9 of chapter 7, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues. Nations, kindreds, people, and tongues. So you've got people from all the nations of the world, people from subgroups, kindreds, right? Kindreds, families of individuals, nations, kindreds, people, and tongues. In other words, even all the languages were represented from all over the world. So John's making the point here, this was global. These people who were hungry and thirsty, who were in the sun, under the elements, during the tribulation period, were from all over the globe. It wasn't just a localized thing. So I'm saying that to drive home the point that the tribulation period is indeed a global phenomenon. And the tribulation does happen to Christians. And it happens to Christians all over the world in such a degree that they can't be numbered. So we just have to file this away and think, what are we going to do? How are you going to handle that? The Lord told us that He's telling us this on purpose. He's not telling us this because He just thinks this is fun reading. We're being given these words so that we have a chance to prepare ourselves. What's going to happen if we, I've talked with my family. Maybe we pay the house off. The house is paid off. But we have no way to transact money. If we don't have any way to pay our taxes, what's going to happen? We're not going to have a place to live. You know what? On the shelf right above here, I've got a family-sized tent. You know why? Because that might be our house one day. I've got little canisters of propane. Why? Because we may need that to heat. I've got an axe. I've got a hatchet. I've got a knife. Why do I have those things? I don't need them, right? They're just in a bin. I don't even use them. Why do I have them? Because this scripture says during the tribulation period, people were living in the elements. They were looking for food. They were looking for water. I have water purification straws. I can go to a river and drink water I can go to a river and drink water out of the river through a purification straw. Why do I have those? Because I don't know what's going to happen. And it's not just the tribulation. These are good things to have for any kind of a weird thing. What happens if a tornado hits Edmond, Oklahoma, and it goes straight through the middle of town and it knocks out power for a month? Or, God forbid, anybody's house, but let's just say that it comes and it ends up taking our house. We don't have any place to live. What are we going to do? We have to have something, right? So just natural disaster planning in itself is a good thing to do. So I'm bringing this up because I want to make certain that as we're going through Scripture, you got your eyes on, got your hat on, and you've got your binoculars out, and you're watching for these things so that when Scripture says something without saying it, you're catching it, right? Okay, so I wanted to catch you up on that. Anybody have thoughts before I move on? Because otherwise I'm going to go straight in to Revelation chapter 9, and we're going to go to the fifth trumpet. Because we left off last week at the fourth trumpet sounding. Are we good to go? Yep. Awesomeness. All right, here we go. Chapter 9. So that, just to remind you, super fast, we're talking about the seven trumpets. We had seven seals. The Lamb opened the seven seals. Boom, 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 boom. The seventh seal opened up the seven trumpets. When he opened that up, there was silence in heaven, and then it began the seven trumpets. And so the angels all put their trumpets up to their mouths. They're getting ready to sound, it says. And they all prepared to sound, which means they all put their horns up, got their lips on there, they took a breath, and they're just waiting for their turn. We don't know how long that these things happen between each other. From my study, I don't think there's much time between each trumpet. I don't think there's much. And I'll tell you why today. I'll give you a reason why I think that today. But I think the trumpets are blast, and then there's a little bit of time and it's blast. I don't think it's like years or day or even, in some cases it's months, but it's certainly not years. So, seven angels had the seven trumpets prepared to sound, chapter 8, verse 6. The first angel sounded, there was hail and fire mingled with blood. They were cast upon the earth. A third part of the trees were burned up and all the green grass. So we talked about that. A third part of the trees, one of the, Scott, I think it was, brought up, could it be that this happened to one of the three parts of the earth? Remember we talked about the fourth part of the earth on the fourth horseman of the apocalypse, and how fourth is the only time that the word fourth is used. It's used in that scripture, and it says, when it's talking about the fourth horseman, and I brought up the possibility that it's speaking about the fourth part of the earth, not just necessarily that it's the fourth plague, or a fourth of the world, 25%, because it's the only time that that number is used. And that would be a judgment against the Americas. Scott had brought up, when we were reading this, what if some of these thirds, maybe, reference the three parts of the world, which would be Asia, Europa, and Libya, or now Africa, right? Because those were the known three parts of the world at the time the book of the Revelation was written. I don't know. In this case, it sounds to me like it's scattered, because it says, and all the green grass. So that's what makes me think that third is a percentage of the first trumpet. Second angel sounded, a great mountain burning as it was with fire cast into the sea. A third part of the sea became blood. Creatures in the sea and the third part of the creatures that were in the sea and had life died, and a third part of the ships were destroyed. I brought up that the one ocean in the world that's possible on is the Pacific Ocean, because more than 33% of the world's traffic goes between China and the west coast of America using that ocean. And you can pull it up online and you can watch the ships using, just Google, live ship tracker, and it'll come up and show you the ships that are all over the globe and tell you what they are and what they're carrying and the whole 9 yards. You can see the entire thing. It's pretty phenomenal. So I think that's going to happen in the Pacific Ocean. It seems like that's the place that it could happen where it could actually do some damage to this scale. And again, we talked about last time, what is the scripture saying that it's not saying? Well, if you've got something the size of the mountain that's going to destroy a third of the ships, it's going to destroy a third of the animal life, most likely it's going to probably create a gigantic tidal wave of some kind that's going to hit some shore somewhere. Pretty good chance. So, if you have family and friends out in California and Oregon, make sure you send them a Christmas card. Third angel sounded, fell a great star from heaven, burning as it was a lamp. You remember last week I brought the little fire stick, and I was giving you the example of the fire stick, the Flicker Bic fire stick that you use for your fireplace. It's got the flame coming out the back.